Eriksson. So here we are in London. We're here to meet with designer Ross Lovegrove here at his studio in Notting Hill. Ross is truly a pioneer when it comes to industrial design, combining emerging technologies with new materials. His organic and earth-centric works are inspired by the logic and beauty of nature, mixed with social and environmental consciousness. Let's meet Ross and hear about his ongoing quest to create forms that touches people's souls. Could you describe for me, relating to your work, what is infinity when it comes to your work?
Yeah, well, organic design, if you like, is something which is not about using organic materials per se. It's more about the idea that it's generative, which means something is growing and continuing in motion. So it's not stultified, it's not arrested in time, it's something continual and evolving. So yeah, for me, it's something which has an implied sort of life, if you like, a life to it.
I think when I look on your work, it's hard to pinpoint. Is it design? Is it art? Is it sculpture? Or does it has a life of its own? What would you say?
Well, you could say that, you know, the work has no boundaries. So in a sense, if you work as a designer, you have no boundaries because you can be asked to design pretty much anything from food to medical devices. Anything is quantifiable within that umbrella of design. That's where the infinity mixes with the boundlessness, if you like. But you know, I think you need a degree of discipline. And ironically, I think you could get more discipline through art by understanding who you are, what really, you know, drives the soul of your consciousness.
When I look on the design world, there's a lot of trends in it. Mm-hmm. People follow trends. It seems like if I look at your work, you seem to go your own path. How do you find your way around?
Well, I think it's better to be on the outside, because if you're on the inside, you can't see anything. You're too close to whatever it is that you're supposed to be viewing, you know, with an opinion at a distance. So I think being en marge, being on the border of it all, was never intentional, but it's become more and more important to me, I have to say. I don't court a lot of publicity. I'm not a puppet. I would prefer to be silent and within my own world, as I think artists are, really. And if I look back historically, you know, you look at the atelier of somebody like Constantine Brancusi, it had this kind of contained world, and this studio is here for me, and also to sort of constantly educate the people who are working for me. So I don't always have to talk, it's just in the air as it was. And if you look from the outside, you've got no sense of that. I don't invite too many people here, it's just the way it is. I'm not setting up. After a while, when you get a bit older, I think you've got to be more self-referential. Otherwise you lose yourself. You lose yourself to the paranoia of not being on trend or on brand or whatever that is. And I'm not particularly interested in having, well, an awareness of a following. Maybe if I have a following, it's one thing. But I like to think that ultimately, if one sticks with it, that the way technology and the way we think and the issues that come to pass or bear, they reinforce the principles by which I work. You know, I think what I'm doing is becoming more vital, I would say, because times have changed and the way that we can produce form. The problem with design, I would say, is that it's a multiple voice. It's not really, you're not really true to who you are. you are manipulated, and in order to get whatever result that is. However, in a positive sense, you know, some things that I do reach out to a broader audience, and they disseminate my language, whatever that language is that I'm developing. The complexity that I've been exploring in surfaces and form in my work as a sculptor, I put naturally into my work as a designer. That's the enhancement process. So I don't put design into the art. You know, you learn, you can put art into the design, but I'm not sure if you should put design into the art, because it sort of devalues it. I like the idea of biodiversity, how you augment the form pool with your research. So even if I'm working on a bicycle or a piece of architecture, I mean, I'm constantly looking through this lens in my mind of what it would feel like to be next to that object in a kind of a silent world, a world where there's no borders. There's a world where basically it's face value for the object. So from time to time, given the opportunity, maybe I can align or converge a number of principles which might give rise to something a bit more valuable. Convergence is all things considered, and I think that's the measure of the man, is being or artist, whichever way you want to look at it, whether you're a musician or writer, is the ability at any one moment to have that continuum of converging many thoughts, many feelings, so that whatever it is that you do is in a non-orientated way is a very three-dimensional idea. Yeah. So convergence in a contemporary sense means, in design for me, is very powerful, because it's something which is a natural, it's an inevitability, because we're in an age where we do need a new method of industrialization, which is non-fossil fuel, without the heat and the violence, and incredibly bespoke, which means we only make what we need. It's a bit like farming. You know, there's so much waste if you think about it, and that's another issue. But you know, in industry, there's so much waste. So the idea of 3D printing, which means that you construct at a nano level only with the little pixels, if you like, of the material you need, what you need. The thought of you going to a shop and buying a pair of shoes that anybody could buy is ridiculous. It's fundamentally ridiculous that you don't have a pair of shoes for you. So, you know, there's a lot of logic creeping in here. So I know it's in its infancy, but we're going through this new industrial revolution. So you've got that to bear in mind. You've got ecological, evolutionary, polluting issues, resource drawdown issues, which then relate to the idea of only making with the material you need, for the person you need, for that need, blah, 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 blah. So this convergence is really a great moment. So in putting everything together, multiple densities within the same object, transparency, softness, hardness, rigidity, whatever that need, with science, with a new scientific model of the way that you approach things, with research and thought. If you can't do that, then you have to have instinct. You have to have this big instinct which overrides that, where you don't really have the knowledge. You just have the sense on behalf of nature, if you like, that something is right or something's wrong. So the idea of convergence for me is a very, very powerful 21st century now idea that will grow, and it'll go into everything. Yeah, but even if it's not, I think to embed something emotional, so you deal with people's emotional intelligence, which is a very universal condition. And the problem with design is it's a fiddle here and a fiddle there, and if you don't arrive at something that really is of of your DNA, you reject it. You can't look at it again because it's just missing the point. You know, so I think there's a natural balance of alignment between the vitality of the design and the quantity you sell. And I mean, if you don't mind me saying, you're Scandinavian. If you look at Scandinavian furniture design and lighting, I don't think it's sold huge quantities over the years, but boy, is it enduring. It's enduring, and the quantity is over time. You have to get into some other level of insane exploration, but actually, art is as they say, is the antidote to insanity. It's the clarity of life.
When it comes to the crossover between art and design, could you give me an example?
This is often cited as a pretty good example of the crossover between art and design. I mean, you realize that, I hate the word, but you know, the brand iconography is in the product, it's in the object. So, you know, I always say, if you have to go across the road to check if it's a Porsche, it's not a Porsche. I mean, you know, there is this, this DNA, this genetic code which is in things. And, you know, this is not really a bottle. And it's like, it's water frozen in time. And it's a celebration of water, because that's really all we have. But, you know, it has everything, because it has optical qualities which naturally change in your life. It's beautiful to hold, so it has ergonomic qualities which, even if you're a child or you have arthritis, you would appreciate this bottle. It uses a thinner polymer because the tessellation of it makes it stronger, so you have some economy in the object. And what you can't see here is when you pour, the surface level is always different. So the shape you get on the top, depending on how much water you poured or how you pick it up, is always different. So it's a kind of what I call mass individualism.
Now you're one of the world's most well-known designers. You're admired all over the world. Where will you go from now?
Well, do you know the fisherman's story?
No.
Oh, the fisherman's story is great. There's this guy, he would fish every day, and that was his life. And one of his pals came along and said, "Oh, let's fish together." And they're talking, and they're saying, "God, you're good at fishing." He said, "Why don't we buy a little boat, and we can go a little bit further out, and you know, there's more fish out there, so we can catch more fish. Maybe we can start selling them in the market." Oh, okay. He said, after that, we're going to catch, you know, we're going to make money, and we can use that money, and we can buy even a bigger boat. We can hire a few people, help us fish, and we can even sell more fish in the market. We can start a business, we can have a proper stall, and then we can buy an even bigger boat. We can go even further out, get bigger fish, make a fortune. We can develop this business, and then we can sell the business, make lots of money, and then we can fish every day. And he said, "Well, I'm doing that now." So the moral of that story, which is not a Lovegrove morality, but it's just being careful not to expand and grow and lose sight of, well, this sounds ridiculous, but who you are, or you know, what the core of why you exist, you know. And I think you need a new technique, and the new technique allows us to build things, you know, like this, you know, which are incredibly three-dimensional. All of my drawings in my notebooks allude to this, because when you draw, you've got complete freedom, because it's not produced. So you're guessing your way through life. You're folding things together that can't be made, and now we can. So I would be a fool in this day and age not to press the button on using these advanced technologies to produce new things. Even what I like about all the augmented reality and additive technologies is they generally allow us to make less but better, because it's a slow time frame. So we're in a really incredible moment of an industrial revolution. So I can't give up design and just become a sculptor. I have to keep sculpting within that framework of the potential of the time in which we live. So it's a little bit like rewind, pause, fast forward. That's where we are right now, yeah. And I'd love to do a book, you know, like that. And I got this to show you because this is how I do my own mapping. In my own, you know, I have these books and I do my own mapping. This is really how I work, and I work privately. Nobody sees these. So I decide first where I'm going before I even enter the idea of talking to anybody or sharing this with anybody. This is 1982, and in 1982 this is the Royal College of Art, and I was working on this disc camera here as an exploration of new technology. There was this new disc film that was developed by Kodak, so I developed a whole new device which I made. This is a light which is thermoformed and really quite organic, again using 2D fluorescent technology, and this is a leather chaise longue. And what I've realized in this family tree, if you like, this evolutionary DNA, is that you can trace a technological path through my work. You can trace a very kind of earthed, organic, human dimension through the work, which often leads to art. And then you've got this other exploration where they converge. So there's been this massive acceleration from almost three polarities up to a point now where, because there's so much going on in the world, from cars to new modern architecture to art and new science and biology, that my work is absolutely sort of exploding in its diversity up here. And I've been putting this is the real map taken from my sketch, for example, where you can see eco, this is ecological work. This is OE, which means organic essentialism. This is natural structures. And then you have digital. So in a sense, everything is flowing, and I can form connectivities between pretty much everything that I've ever done. So if you put it all in a room, you probably could take time out unless it's qualified by a new technology. So I only generally work on things when there's a new technology, like, you know, like these beautiful Ilabo shoes or these chairs that I'm exploring right now. So I love this mapping. It helps me understand who I am, but it also helps me see what's missing. And I know in this realm, down in this particular area, I am missing some things, as the world we know right now is really accelerating. But we need ecology with the form, so we satisfy, you know, the beauty and the logic which underlies everything I do.
Ross, if you were to give a young person that wants to become a designer an advice, what would that be?
Well, Elon Musk always says, do something useful. In my book, I would say, do something relevant.